Welcome everyone here at T-Systems. I guess I'm now the slot between you and the lunch break. I'm sorry for that, but I brought a very promising and very interesting topic, which is a case study within Eclipse S-CORE, especially the application of the Trustable Software Framework. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Felix Mölders. I'm contributing within the open source community. I'm looking at a lot of familiar faces here for more than 2 years now. I'm working for a European consultancy, which is called Define. We have over 1,900 employees, mostly from STEM areas, so mathematicians, physicists, computer scientists, and we like to go on the hard problems. Just to give you an insight on what things, for example, we are doing within the automotive industry. First of all, things called AI-based predictive test selection, reducing the costs for vehicle-in-the-loop and hardware-in-the-loop tests. If you're interested in that, feel free later to reach out, having a coffee. We are also working on establishing a platform, a crowd balancing platform, basically for having bidirectional vehicle loading, having heat pumps in the system, and doing the so-called redispatch 3.0. And editorial tasks are tidy and exhausting. Therefore, we help also with automation. And one thing I'd like to share before ending the marketing slide, we are very thankful to our customers that have... you cannot see the slides. That is... No? I'm sorry. Maybe. Now it should be right. Okay, so I was talking with nothing in my bag to see that before closing marketing. Then we are very thankful that our customers have voted us 6 years in a row now to be the hidden champion of data and analytics. We like to go on the hard problems. So, what is the agenda for today? Basically, at first, we already heard a lot about Eclipse S-CORE. I will go into detail on the points that are relevant for the Trustable Software Framework, to have it in a nutshell. Then explain you what is the Trustable Software actually, and then have the case study, how do we apply that to an open source library within the project. So let's dive into that. Eclipse S-CORE is intended to deliver code that is functionally safe and safe in the sense of cybersecurity. And this is achieved with a big process model and so on. As you can see on the right side, there's a lot of components within the system having, for example, logging, fixed execution order framework, but also the base Libs library, which offers things like easy reading of configuration files with Json. And this is what this talk today will be about. But before that, I want to talk about 2 misassumptions. The first misassumption I hear a lot about Eclipse S-CORE is the code is not safety certified within this project. It is ready to be certified. The processes are certified, but the code itself is not. And the second is a lot of suppliers, especially Tier 1 suppliers, are afraid of, okay, now we are open sourcing everything and we're losing somehow our business model. We cannot do any more money with that. But this is not right. The specifications come from the suppliers, from the OEMs within the project. It is developed together, but then the software has to go into the vehicle. So the OEM defines what is my defined hardware stack that I want to run the software on, is giving that specification to the distributor, so a supplier, and the distributor then takes over the certification and is the liable instance for the OEM, and therefore also earning some money. This is a slide you already saw. I will now go into the Trustable Software Framework, which is part of the process that is already certified. And as you got the latest news by Sarah, also until ASIL-D level. And so what basically is the Eclipse Trustable Software Framework? Let's start by that. In the past, it was like this. You were tight to have V-model processes, first defining requirements, then going into detail, having the coding, then the testing, and then have a somehow one-off safety check, and then the thing is done and goes into the vehicle. This is a problem. Nowadays, development is agile. You want to do things like code first, and we want to really do open source. So take something that wasn't intentionally developed for automotive industry, but is highly qualified, highly mature, get this certified. So the goal and approach basically of the TSF is to deliver a methodology for continuous, quantitative risk assessment in complex software systems. And it does so by basically building such a graph, which is called the Trustable graph. The overall statement is, what we want to know is this software release trustable? But what does trustable mean? Therefore, you have those tenets, in German Grundsätze, and assertions, and you have to prove that those tenets, those assertions are fulfilled. And therefore, you have to provide evidence and score those evidences, which are then leading to an overall score. So the graph is actually quite big. This is why I don't want to go in all of the assertions, but at least what are the tenets, so Grundsätze for trustable software. The first one is provenance. I want to be aware of where does my software modules come from. I want to know where do the dependencies come from. I want to be in control of that, not having like this adversarial event, having some hackers from whatever country going into the open source project and introducing backdoors. You don't want to have this. Secondly, it's about construction. So, are my builds reproducible? Am I in control of the pipelines? Can I build it for different target systems? Then third, it's about changes. So one important criteria for us to choose a library is it actively maintained? Do I have updates coming in frequently? Then fourth, it's about expectations. What we know in the automotive industry by requirements, it goes into there. So we want to know what does the software do and what does it not do and what are potential misbehaviors, for examples. Then it's fifth, it's about the results. So basically evidence that everything we state about the software and the release is actually true. And then it's about confidence. Part of the confidence is methodologies. Just let you know, Trustable Software Framework is certified as a process. And by that, we were looking for some software module to start working with. So let's dive into the case study. How did we do that? First of all, the same as you. We were standing in front of this, and we were thinking, okay, this is a lot. We have to dive in, we have to read a lot, and basically extract what would be criteria to easily get a software certified later on using the Trustable Software Framework. And therefore, we derived a few criteria. The first one is the fewer dependencies, the easier we get the job done. So having everything, for example, running only on C++11, which is in the standard library, that would make the job very easy. Fixes. Known bugs and misbehaviors should already be reported, managed, and fixed, and it should be documented. If this is done, we can have a high level of confidence that this software is good. It's about validation. Testing should be in place. We already saw some scores. We are in the area of 70 to 80% with overall Eclipse S-CORE by now. With the software we found, I will later on tell you we are on 100%. We should have the unit tests and stress tests, very important. So having a CI pipeline in place, that should be a very good thing. The Eclipse S-CORE requirements should be met, of course. Confidence. The library should be on the market for a long time and should be widely used. So we can really say it's mature and we can trust it. Then it's about tests. Mitigation should be in place for prohibited misbehaviors. It's about iterations. We should be able to see for all releases, what is the source code, what are the tests, and so on. And last but not least, data. There should be extensive test data to stress test the system that we want to certify. And for all of that, I know there are a lot of embedded developers here that have their favorite library they want to use. For example, RapidJSON, BootJSON, whatsoever. But somehow this is a thing of open source. The people that do the job and come together, they have their preferences and then take the decision. So this one was a very good match. NLohmann, to give him the credit, is a former employee of Mercedes-Benz, and so he was already well aware of what a JSON library should look like for the automotive industry. The library was founded in 2013, so already more than a decade ago. It's widely used. We know that some suppliers, also OEMs, use it within their development pipelines, but later on change it, going to production to proprietary solution. And the good thing is, it was intended to have intuitive syntax. Trivial integration, using only C++, makes easy the job for certification. 100% unit testing, not only that, but also 100% branch coverage. So all the code is extensively tested. We have fuzz testing from Google Fuzz, so really doing the stress test with a lot of test data. One thing that was, if you're interested in, I can later on show you some data on that, was not in the prior goal of this library was memory efficiency and speed. It is fast, it is efficient, but you could really take another library that is still a little bit more faster. And then, by knowing what are the criteria, having chosen the library, what is TSF basically about? This looks a little bit, what's langweilig in English? Boring. It's a lot of job you have to get done. Maybe boring job, but it works like this. You have to write those statements to support your trustable graph. Here, for example, I brought you one statement in the trustable graph, which is supporting the tenant results and validation, which is about the CI pipeline. So you are writing those statements to support it, but you also have to provide evidences. This can be done by having those YAML items here, having an automated check for a link, for example. This one is about CI pipeline, so we chose to have the evidence providing by giving that link to the CI pipeline, checking if it still exists, and also giving a description which will be later on introduced to the documentation. Two things that I will come in by now is very important is the scoring. We want to retrieve an overall score. So you have subject matter experts assigning values for this statement. How confident are we this is actually true? And you have this decision to take, is this a normative statement or is it not? If it is normative, then it will go into the final score. If it is not, then it's just some info. And scoring is one of the main parts within the process. So we start by having an author creating the statement, setting an initial score for that, and then starting a review cycle. We have colleagues from OEMs, but also from Tier 1 suppliers that take this over, then have a look at that statement and set their own score. What we learned from the process basically is choose wisely how many reviewers you need, because not each statement is as important as the others are. It takes some time. We started like really working on the Trustable Software Framework here in late September last year, and we are currently still working on that, because reviewing and really diving into the things, seeing that the argumentation is a good one, is important. One thing we notice is different reviewers, different experts, different scoring. Sometimes you have a person who's saying, okay, this is 0.9, and the other one, no, this is 0 at all. Yeah, but this is a very good indication within this framework to identify where do I have flakes within my argumentation, dive into that, make it even better. About the reviews itself, you got two jobs, basically checking, does the statement actually support what we intend to do, and set a score. And by having then all the scores within the graph, the main idea is to have a converging confidence to the real value, basically. And this process is supported by a tool that you mostly don't know yet, because this is Trustable specific. It is called TrueDuck. It's a CLI tool, basically supporting all of the steps. The first is for having the reviews. A review, performing a review, basically means you look at this item and then create a hash value for that statement. Because if you have created a hash value for that statement, if, for example, code that you are referencing is changing, then the system automatically knows, okay, this statement I have in my graph is now invalid because the code has changed. You have to redo a review. Secondly, it's building those links between items, because you don't only have tenets, assertion, statements. You can have a statement with substatements, substatements, and so on, building a very exhaustible graph. This is about automation, and the two main results of the TSF basically are, first of all, the trustable graph. This is also created with the TrueDuck CLI, and the trustable report, really giving you idea what are the scores, what are the statements, and so on. So concluding all of this, what was our experience so far? We are trying to start the certification with Exeter for this software module about in September this year, to really have it certified then. What we learned using the Trustable Software Framework, first, it's a perfect match to really do code-first things, because we use it in that case to have an open source library that wasn't intentionally built to be safety certified, but to do that after the code was written. Second, you have really extensive documentation, but also for that a very steep learning curve. Like, you were sitting in front of this graph the same we did, and it's a lot of investigation work you have to do in the beginning to get working with it, but that works fast. Also because of the great support by the founder, to name him Paul Sherwood, and CodeThink, his company. You have good tooling, and the scores basically support inference whether the release is basically trustable or not. But challenges that we faced. There is no reference project yet that you could look at. We are building this reference project. So if anyone wants to apply trustable software, not only to open source libraries, but also use it within the company, you can look at our project and see how we did things. You can even challenge that. I mean, it doesn't mean to be that we got the final solution, but we are trying to really get hands-on and things done. And secondly, more from the corporate perspective, there's right now only one certification body that is working with a Trustable Software Framework, which is Exeter. You could go to another certification body, but that would mean more effort, as they have to really get worked into the subject then. And by that, I really thank you for your patience. I'm also a little bit hungry right now, but first of all, thank you for listening. If you have any questions and statements, let me know. I'm open for your feedback.
Thank you. Thank you. That was extremely interesting. I have a bunch of questions, but first I want to ask to the audience. Yes, Holger.
A lot of fans.
Or, yeah.
Yeah, thanks for this talk. I have a question. In one of the previous talks, we've learned that in the future, software is not written by hand anymore, but generated by AI. So software is a black box and defined by its requirements. How would that work with the Trustable Software Framework when the software is a black box?
This is a super great question. Also, I had in my mind. Basically, currently, the application of the TSF is editorial work, analyzing work performed by humans right now. I'm quite sure if we have enough references, we can also automate this. But still, in the end, there will be the assessment by a certification body, people that really check what is the argumentation, is it fitting, what the code really does, and so on. So there will always be a human in the loop, in my imagination. Maybe you will prove me wrong in 10 years.
But then you also would look inside the code, or can you treat it completely as a black box and just look at the requirements and test results?
The approach we basically did is, as we have a 100% test coverage, we are mapping the requirements to those tests, and thereby having somehow this gray box, okay? We're using the interfaces, we know what those interfaces should do, and thereby having mapped all of the code. So the code is 100% mapped and part of the documentation then. Yeah.
So the Trustable Software Framework went through a baseline assessment, and there is the notion that it can be used, so it's assessed for IEC 61508 ASIL 3 and also up to ASIL D, which means you can use it for safety critical development, but is the Trustable software giving you any hint or evidence that this, whatever score you achieve, is ASIL B or ASIL D capable? Because, I mean, is it something checking that you have an alternative for decision coverage in your testing strategy? So on which level are you giving hints?
This is a very interesting question. I mean, the score by itself doesn't have a meaning yet. What the assessors look like or look on is how did this score evolve over time? Did you take it serious? And were you making good steps forward? But if you're looking especially at ASIL D, there are things we know from ISO 26262, like FTA, FMEA, things you have to perform. And this is also part of the Trustable Software Framework. There was a detailed question that I didn't cover in the talk yet. So you have this process. Oh, the slides can be seen. Maybe you can show them. Yeah. So this is the risk process within TSF. You're basically turning cycles to find out all the misbehaviors possible. And in this step of risk analysis, you are not using HAZOP, ETA, FMECA. You can use them, but there's one thing that is equally potent, at least a little bit on the top after the assessment by Massachusetts Institute for Technology, which is called the System Theoretic Process Analysis. Also certified, and by that you would create all those safety-relevant documentation that you really need for certification, because what later on is happening, you take all the TSF documentation and map it into a safety case by the standard. And this one is then certified. Yeah.
Yeah, my question would go in the same direction. What am I supposed to do with the score then? I mean, if I want to consume this piece of software and I get all the report that you created, then it's still a subjective decision that I make, right? Do I trust it now based on what I see? And I guess, so I'm being a supporter of the approach. I guess the value is in the link between the claimed features of it and the evidence that you provide, and that you somehow make it more transparent as to why I should believe that it actually fulfills these requirements.
Yeah. So people like to look at numbers because they give us somehow a way of or feeling of security or safety. The scores are an indication. Those scores are supported by argumentation. Whenever you would use one software, you have to dive into the documentation and see what are the arguments, also what are the assumptions of use. You have to check that in advance. But a thing that is very nice about that, you can have historical changes. See, did we get more confident even for agile development? You can use this framework right away, even in automotive industry already. And the second is if you're combining software modules, you would have one bigger integrating repository, taking also the scores of the referenced repositories, and thereby giving you an indication for the overall software thing that you are building, how safe it basically is. Yeah.
I have a question about the effort you spend. Okay, first time, the effort is a lot more because you have no clue what you're doing, you're estimating. Okay, the first thing is first time effort, okay. Second time effort, so what do you think would be the estimate for nearly similar size library for the effort size. So how many people you need to have another library, like a JSON library, another one what is faster to assess.
Okay, so if the preconditions are the same, the library is also the same size, and the requirements are clear and they are not evolving over time, because we started also with S-CORE having requirements under construction and so on, I would estimate having 3 month to 6 month horizon, because you have to
one guy doing it.
You should have one guy creating the documentation, but it's important to have a reviewer, someone who's critically from extern looking on the things that they really have a value. And it also depends on what level are you going to. If you want to have ASIL-D, you have to perform all the STPA thing. That takes a lot of time. Either way, if you do classical safety or if you do it with the Trustable Software Framework. With ASIL-B, which you can translate to good engineering manners, it's easier. Yeah.
I have a question which goes hand in hand with that from Christian, and that goes into the direction of how easy was it to adopt TSF? So is it something you just go to the repo, you read through the documentation, and it's easy to adopt, or did you need to have dailies with the maintainers of the project because you had so many questions?
Basically, we did it like, I mean, a lot of you guys were in university writing a master thesis. You get a lot of papers, you start reading, and then you start doing things. And yeah, we had some calls with Exeter that was about tooling, especially, and mostly it was about, as we had no reference, are we doing things right? Please have a look at this. Did we understand this right? And overall, if you like to read, the documentation really is extensive and tells you everything you need to know, then it's easy to make. Yeah, but you have to bring the first-time effort in. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I also have some questions. So,
yeah,
like the first is, and that was kind of touched by Holger, is you said you need to be a subject matter expert. Do you need to be a subject matter expert on the actual code, on the actual library, or is it enough to understand the process, so the TSF deeply?
Mm-hmm. So basically, it can be a lot of them. The subject matter expert that is writing or the statements basically should know what the software does.
Okay.
Really should do. So, but you will do this. If you assess the software, you will dive into the code, see what are misbehaviors and so on. On the other side, we have subject matter experts within this project that are long-time experienced safety engineers. So that come from the safety perspective and ask more, does the code do this or that? They ask, is this statement really true? Is this now concerned to be ASIL-B or is it QM? So they really give it this safety qualification then. Yeah,
that's interesting. And in fact, you said that based on these methodologies, based on the scores that you get, since it's so high, basically, you would be ready to certify the library. Do you certify it with the 26262 or with the IEC 61508? Because my understanding is the TSF methodology is EXIDA audited for certification with the mother norm, while the 26262 is like derived from the 61508.
They can do both.
And
I would maybe suggest to do both, because then it can be used, this library, in also other industries. Yeah, it's not then concentrated on functional safety.
So it's
also
possible for both,
you
because they don't map one-to-one.
Actually, this approach is abstract to a lot of ISO norms that you could use, cybersecurity, functional safety, IECs, and so on. And the certification then is done to a certain norm. Yeah.
One more question. So you use this TrueDuck tool.
Yeah.
This is part of TSF of the project?
The developers provide this, yeah.
Is it open source?
It is open source, but I don't think yet under the Eclipse Foundation.
Okay, so maybe we can,
you can see the source code, everything.
That's the most important thing. Because, I mean, the follow-up question is, are you going to publish what you did somewhere so that we can quickly use your setup for another project?
Yes, it's already available within Baselabs. We have a main repository where we have the productive argumentation in. Don't be afraid. Currently, there are a lot of 0 values, but this is due to not being reviewed yet. As long as a statement is not reviewed, the default value is 0. Doesn't matter what you have typed in.
Okay.
But the statements are already available, and we are now in the reviewing processes to increase the score by checking all the boxes.
Yeah, because that's really interesting. So because I mean, U protocol, I know Daniel has tried to apply TSF. It would be great if you could try with your setup. And also we, Eclipse, are going to be, at least actually Dana is, going to be trying to certify ThreadX, the new version, moving over to TSF. So that's a really good, I think, contribution to the community. But there were other questions. Yes.
Are you considering also as a criteria how many contributors and the amount of contribution to a library?
Yes, we do analyze the history of this open source project. We look into all the issues that have been risen, all merge requests that have been done, and so on. We are really evaluating the history of this software component open source project, as we want to know the provenance. But it's also about methodology. We can see by that and argue it is actively maintained and it is mature because there were such errors, they were fixed easily or fast and are now within the release, and we saw what could have happened and now cannot happen anymore.
Do you think also to extend also this approach for maybe the future? I mean, maybe a contributor could not be any more present in the future. Is there a direct contact with the contributors or not?
No, this is, it doesn't depend on the contributor. You can take it and continue working on that. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you so much, Felix, again.
Thank you for having
really
me.
Of course. So we are only 15 minutes behind.
Felix, there's even more questions than here online, but
Yeah.
I would like to request you to answer them online. Is that okay in the chat?
No problem.
Great. So thanks very much.
All right, thank you.
Then we could start now with the coffee break.
Yes, we have a coffee break, half an hour. I think we can keep half an hour, so we will be back at 11:45.
Sounds great.
Okay, thank you all.
Yeah. And two things for the coffee break. Besides having good talks to each other, we have an AI mood probe. How is your mood about AI? You can test it with AI there with Lars. And the second thing is we have a raffle for you, original World Cup balls, soccer balls. You can win 10 of them. It's only for the online community. It's only for the on-site participants. You have good chances to win one of them and take them home.